There's something strangely powerful about the quiet ones. They sit in rooms full of noise, conversations overlapping, laughter colliding, energy spilling. And yet they remain still, composed, silent. You might not notice them at first. They rarely speak over anyone, rarely interrupt. They listen, they observe, they calculate. They seem distant, but they're anything but. Because while others are talking, they're seeing. While others are reacting, they're absorbing. And while everyone else is trying to be heard, they're busy understanding what no one else even noticed. What you're about to hear might change the way you see quiet people forever, because silence in psychology is never empty. To understand people who stay quiet in groups, you have to start with what silence means to the brain. See, in a loud environment, most people feel energized, but quiet people, they feel flooded. Their senses don't dull with noise, they sharpen. Every word, every tone, every flicker of emotion becomes information. It's not that they can't handle people, it's that they process everything at once. Psychologists call this high sensory processing sensitivity, a trait shared by about 20% of the population. For these individuals, social situations are not just about words, they're about emotional microcurrents, hidden signals, unsaid things. They pick up moods the way others pick up melodies. And when that input becomes too much, they retreat into silence, not out of indifference, but as a form of emotional regulation. They weren't always quiet. In childhood, many of them tried to speak up, but they learned early that the loudest voice in the room wins, not the truest one. They noticed how people interrupted before they finished, how laughter could sting when it wasn't shared, how honesty sometimes backfired. So they began to adapt, to measure, to think twice before speaking once. Silence became not an absence of thought, but a buffer between thought and judgment. In homes where mistakes weren't forgiven, in classrooms where confidence was punished, in friendships where vulnerability was mocked, they learned that quiet meant safety. And the human mind, once it associates safety with silence, will choose silence every single time. Carl Rogers, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, once said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." But the quiet ones often live on the other side of that paradox. They don't feel safe enough to be seen, so they adapt, becoming smaller, softer, invisible in crowds. It's not self-hatred, it's self-preservation, because to speak is to risk exposure, and to be exposed is to risk being misunderstood. For them, being misread feels worse than being unseen. Neuroscience supports this too. The amygdala, the brain's threat center, activates in socially anxious or hyper-aware individuals during group interactions, especially when they feel watched, evaluated, or ignored. That activation floods the body with cortisol and adrenaline, the same chemicals released when we sense danger. So when they stay quiet in a group, their silence isn't apathy, it's biology. It's the nervous system whispering, "Stay safe. Stay unseen." Yet their silence holds paradoxes. It makes others uncomfortable. People start to project. They're shy, they're arrogant, they're judging us. But in truth, they're doing none of that. They're simply trying to stay grounded while their mind unfolds a dozen parallel narratives at once. Every word in the air, every sigh, every flicker of emotion, they're decoding it. They're seeing the dynamics behind the performance. Who's dominating? Who's insecure? Who's pretending to listen? Their silence isn't distance, it's awareness. And awareness, deep, relentless awareness, is exhausting. In philosophical terms, this awareness borders on existential. The German philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once wrote, "Once you label me, you negate me." That's what quiet people fear most: labels. Introvert, shy, withdrawn, weird. Each label shrinks the complexity of who they are into something easy for others to digest. So they stay silent, not because they have nothing to add, but because their thoughts can't survive being simplified. Their mind is a labyrinth, and they know words are blunt instruments. To speak carelessly would be to reduce what they feel. To stay quiet, then, is an act of intellectual and emotional precision. But silence can also become a prison, because when you stay quiet long enough, you start believing your quietness is a burden. You start assuming that no one wants to hear you, that your thoughts, no matter how deep, will only interrupt the rhythm of louder laces. So you fold yourself inward. You sit in rooms full of people and wonder how everyone seems to breathe so easily. They laugh without hesitation. They talk without calculation. They exist without analysis. And you, the quiet one, feel like an alien disguised as a human being. But here's the truth psychologists often emphasize. Silence is not emptiness, it's containment. It's the mind's way of saying, I'll release what's safe when it's safe to release it. And that's the part most people never see. Because when a quiet person does speak, their words carry the weight of 100 swallowed sentences. They speak with intention. They think before they say. They remember what was said before. Their silence refines their language. That's why when they finally talk, the room goes still. Because people feel, even subconsciously, that something honest is being spoken. There's a strange irony here. Quiet people often spend their lives wishing they could be more talkative. But talkative people often wish they could be more thoughtful. And in that contrast lies the beauty of human difference, the balance between noise and reflection. Every group needs both, the speakers to give the moment life and the listeners to give it meaning. Without the quiet ones, rooms would echo with sound but contain no understanding. Still, silence can't protect forever, because after years of being the observer, something inside starts to ache, the longing to be understood, to be known, to be heard. That's the breaking point many quiet people eventually reach, when their solitude stops feeling safe and starts feeling like suffocation. When they realize that observation without participation isn't peace, it's distance. And healing begins there, when silence turns from avoidance into choice. In cognitive psychology, there's a term, self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to influence events and express yourself. For many quiet individuals, self-efficacy has been suppressed, not erased. The first step back isn't volume, it's permission. Permission to speak imperfectly, permission to exist messily, permission to interrupt without apology. Because growth doesn't start with confidence, it starts with curiosity. And when quiet people start wondering, what if my voice matters? Something extraordinary happens. They begin to use their silence not as a wall, but as a foundation for expression that's deliberate, authentic, rare. And maybe that's what we misunderstand most. The quiet ones aren't fragile, they're forged. They're tempered by restraint. Their silence isn't weakness,
It's wisdom waiting for timing. In a world obsessed with being heard, they've mastered the art of listening. And in that art lies power. Because the one who listens sees everything, and the one who sees everything eventually speaks truths others can't. So the next time you see someone staying quiet in a group, don't mistake their silence for absence. It's depth, it's awareness, it's humanity refined. Because sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one holding the entire conversation together without saying a single word. And when they finally speak, you'll understand why they waited.